Hello students, welcome to science class. Today we're going to do another COSMOS lesson dealing with waves. Today's lesson is going to be AMFM modulation. Well, last time we spoke a little bit about modulation, but today we're going to go a lot deeper into it, so you should get a better understanding of what modulation really is, okay? Now, everybody should have their notebooks out and their pens and pencils ready to write. So, let's get into it. Again, giving credit to the developers of COSMOS. Hi, everybody. Today's lesson, topic, AM/FM modulation. Everybody needs to write the topic, learning target, and the standards. Everybody should be writing as I am reading. Topic, AM/FM modulation, learning target. I can visualize AM and FM modulated wave signals showing signal strength, amplitude, and frequency. So we're going to visualize it on the computer screen. So everybody, please write. Again, I have you on timer. You got 2 minutes. Now you have 1.5 minutes. In the interest of time, I'm telling you again, for the standards, just write the letters and numbers right here. MS-PS4-1, just write that. Don't have to write all the other stuff, just write that one. That's good enough. So topic, AM/FM modulation, learning target. I can visualize AM and FM modulated wave signals showing signal strength, amplitude, and frequency. Okay. You got 10 seconds. Let's go, people. Okay. Now here's your homework. Copy it, people. Copy it, copy it, copy it. Homework says, write 1 to 3 paragraphs to compare and contrast the reflection, refraction, and diffraction of waves. So it's 1 to 3 paragraphs. You're going to tell me, you're going to compare and contrast reflection of waves, refraction of waves, and diffraction of waves. So copy the homework. That's what you're going to do tonight. Also, once you're done with the homework, the problem of the day. What do you think causes your cell phone to not receive a signal? So when your cell phone drops a call, what do you think causes that? Write it down for me. Write it down. What do you think causes your cell phone to not receive a signal? That's when your phone drops a call. So write it down for me. Write it down again. 2 minutes. I have you on timer. Work fast, people. Work fast. I know all of you have cell phones, and from time to time, the call gets dropped. So what do you think causes that? Write it down. You have 10 seconds. That's enough. Let's move on. Discussion questions. Now, I know all of you are going to tell me no, because you're young. All of you are going to tell me no to these discussion questions. Have you ever listened to AM radio? No. Have you ever listened to FM radio? No. Now, but I'm sure you probably, some of you have heard your parents listening to radio. And what do you think the radio sounds like? Don't nobody tell me about Spotify and everything else. I know about all of that and the Apple Play and whatnot. But I'm talking about AM and FM radio. Have you ever listened to it and tell me what they sound like? Now write 1 to 3 sentences for me about that real quick. You got 1 minute. You got 30 seconds. Write fast, work fast. Okay, we got to stop now. Everybody, put your pens and pencils down. Put your pens and pencils down. I need your undivided attention. I need everybody's undivided attention right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about amplitude. The amplitude of a wave is half the distance between a crest and a trough on a wave. Look at the diagram. The amplitude is half the distance between a crest and a trough. So a crest is at the top, trough is at the bottom. Amplitude is half that distance. Okay? Good. Moving right along. The vibrations that produce a wave transfer energy to the wave. The diagram below is used to represent a wave, which is a sound wave at different amplitudes. So you can see this one over here, small amplitude, because the distance between here and here is small. But this one has a large amplitude compared to this one, so it's much larger. So this sound is going to sound quieter. This sound is going to sound louder. So amplitude provides the wave with energy. The larger the amplitude, the more energy the wave has. One more time. The larger the amplitude, the more energy the wave has. Okay? Moving right along. Frequency. The frequency of a wave is the number of waves or cycles that pass a fixed point in a given amount of time, usually seconds. The unit for wave frequency is hertz. Symbol is Hz, where 1 hertz equals 1 wave passing a fixed point in 1 second. The higher the frequency wave has more energy than a lower frequency wave with the same amplitude. Okay? So frequency is how many, we could also say how many wavelengths pass a given point each time. But it's 1 cycle, and 1 cycle of the wave is shown right here. Starts here, crest, trough, back to normal. So that is 1 cycle, okay? Right there, 1 cycle of a wave. How many of these pass the point every second? So that's why I'm telling you it could be a wavelength, because from here to here, you would get the same thing, okay? Moving right along. Now, modulation is what I was telling you about. Modulation is the process of varying one or more properties of a wave, called the carrier signal, with an electronic signal that typically contains information to be transmitted. So when you modulate a wave, you vary one or more of the properties of the wave. So you vary either the amplitude of the wave or the frequency of the wave. That's how you modulate it. You vary the amplitude and then, or you vary the frequency. Now, a modulator is a device that performs modulation. So the modulator would vary the frequency or vary the amplitude, as the case might be. A demodulator is a device that does the reverse. It demodulates a modulated signal, okay? Now, I know most of you have heard of a modem. Modem usually attached to your computer. A modem can perform both modulation and demodulation. That's a modulator, okay? A modem. Now, AM and FM. The 2 most popular types of electronic wave signals are amplitude modulation, which is AM, and frequency modulation, which is FM. Modulation is the process of transforming an electronic wave signal into an electromagnetic wave to transport that signal. Okay? So we have the regular signal here. Then we have the AM modulated wave. That's it right there. Amplitude modulated. only the amplitude is modulated. And then we have the FM wave, only the frequency is modulated. Okay? Let's move on. Now this focuses on only amplitude modulation. You have the information signal at the top, and then you have the modulated, amplitude modulated wave at the bottom. So this is the amplitude modulated wave at the bottom right there. Now, in frequency modulation, as you can see, the information signal wave is at the top, and then the frequency modulated wave is right there. So when you modulate the frequency, you get the crests all get closer together, or they get spread out farther apart. So that's how you modulate the frequency, and that is FM, frequency modulation. Okay? This is your worksheet. Again, I've put all the information there. I have put all the information there. Everything is there. You just read it through. And then now, at this point, we're going to go to the toolkit. Now, here we have amplitude modulation and frequency modulation. We're going to look at amplitude modulation first. When you click on the start button, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. This is going to be the information signal, carrier frequency. The middle graph is going to be the amplitude modulated signal wave. That's the middle graph. This graph down here is a spectrogram. This is going to show you the power of the wave signal. And remember, I told you about this. If you see a lot of green and yellow and other colors, that means the signal is not very strong. Only the bright reds mean you have a strong signal. So if you see a lot of green in particular, or blue or green, it's not a very strong signal. Also, if you see yellow, it's a very weak, not a strong signal at all. Okay? And this is the frequency view of the signal. So that's what you're going to see. Now, up here, you have the frequency slider, and you're going to move this across, and you're going to observe how this graph and this graph changes. That's what you're going to observe, okay? Now, at the end, there is a little triangle up arrow with a counter. Triangle up arrow. Looks like this. So you're going to bring the slider back to 0, and then you're going to click the arrow, the up arrow, and observe the changes that occur in the carrier wave and the modulated wave. Okay? That's what you're going to do first. Then you're going to return it back to 0, and you're going to click the up arrow again, and you're going to observe this time what happens in the spectrogram, only the spectrogram. So that's what you're going to do. Okay? And then we're going to be done with AM. And then you're going to, this is where you're going to record your observations for the carrier wave and the amplitude modulated wave. And then this is where you're going to write your information for the spectrogram, okay? Your observations, what you saw that happened. And then we're going to stop that, and then we're going to go on to frequency modulation. And we're going to see a graph like this, and we're going to do the same thing. The slider is up here. We're going to click on the up arrow, and you're going to observe how these two, this one and this one, the frequency modulated signal and the frequency view, you're going to describe what changes you see. And then you're going to put it back to 0 again. You're going to click the up arrow again, move it across, and you're going to observe what happens in the spectrogram. And you can tell the difference between this spectrogram and this spectrogram. So right away, you should be able to figure out which one has more power. After that, same thing. Answer the questions, write your observations here, write your observations there. And then your final questions, you got to compare and contrast these two. And you write your comparisons there. Okay? So at this point now, we are going to go to our toolkit. So this is our toolkit. Amplitude modulation right here. Start, stop. So let's click start. Now, there you see it. Information signal, carrier frequency, carrier wave, amplitude modulated signal, that's it right there. The spectrogram is loading, and you can see not a lot of red, just 2 tiny streaks of red, not a lot. And then this is the frequency view. So here's what I'm going to do now. Watch everybody. I put in the slider up here, and there you have the up arrow over here beside the counter. So we're going to put the slider back to 0. Okay? Now I'm going to click the up arrow, and you are to observe what changes happen in this graph and this graph. Okay? Observe, and then you're going to record on your handout. So let me click the up arrow. So it's moving. Observe the changes. 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 I hope you're all looking and observing. Okay. So you saw the changes that took place in this graph and this graph. Saw the changes. I'm giving you 1 minute to write those changes on your handout. In the proper space on your handout, write the changes you just saw. Everybody should be writing right here now. Everybody should be writing their observations from what they just saw right here. You have 1 minute. Write your observations right there. Changes you saw that took place. You have less than a minute. Okay, so let's go back to our toolkit. The slider is back to 0. Now I want you to watch the changes that happen in the spectrogram. Just the spectrogram, nothing else. Just the spectrogram. Observe the changes that are going to happen with the spectrogram. I'm going to click the up arrow. Observe. It's loading. I'm just keep clicking. Observe the changes. Okay. It's all the way across now. So you should see the changes that happened in the spectrogram. Now you're going to record them on your handout. Record them on your handout. So that was amplitude modulation. Now let us look at frequency modulation. So we're back at our handout. So here is frequency modulation, start button, stop button. When we click the start button, we're going to see this graph now. And we're going to move the slider, and you're going to observe this graph and this graph. Observe the changes, and you're going to record in these two. And then I'm going to put the slider back to 0, do it one more time, and you're going to observe the changes in this spectrogram. Okay? So let us get to our toolkit. I'm going to stop that. Here we go now. Stop. Now we're going to do frequency modulation. Start. These are the new graphs now. This is the spectrogram. It's loading. And the information signal you see is different. This one is like squares. That means it is a digital signal. And here we have the frequency modulated signal. This is the FM signal right here. This is the frequency view of it, okay? Now I'm going to put the slider back to 0. There you have it. Now I'm going to click the up arrow, and as I move across, you're going to look for changes in this one and this one. You're going to observe the changes in this one and record it on your handout. So observe the changes. Observe, observe, keep observing, observe, observe. There, it's all the way across. Right now, you have to write the changes you observe that took place in the FM modulated signal and in the frequency view. You have to write it on your handout. So here's your handout. Write what you observe in those two diagrams right here. You have a little over a minute left. Please write what you observe. Okay. Everybody should have written their observations. Let's go back to the toolkit. So I'm going to put the slider back to 0. Okay. Now, the only diagram you're going to observe now is the spectrogram right here. Only this diagram you are going to observe. Only this one. Okay. Now, remember I told you that the more red you see, it means the signal has a lot of power, has more energy. So the more red you see, it means the signal has more power, more energy. Okay. So I'm going to click the up arrow again, and you'll observe the spectrogram only. Remember. Here we go. Here we go. Observe. 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 Okay. Sliders all across. Observe the changes that took place in this one. And then you're going to write your observations on your handout. So you should be writing your observations right here in this space. Graph of spectrogram. That's where you should be writing your information. Again, I'm giving you a minute. I have you on timer, everybody. Please write fast, work fast. Okay, finish off your answers. We got to move on. Okay, so moving right along, you first saw this spectrogram when you looked at AM modulation. And then just now you looked at FM modulation and you saw this spectrogram. So what you're going to do for me now, look at the two of them. Remember what I said about power. And you're going to compare and contrast those two diagrams and write your answers at the bottom. Write your information at the bottom. Compare these two spectrograms for the AM wave and the FM wave. Compare them. Write your answers at the bottom. Okay? Write your answers there. Everybody, please work fast. You got 2 minutes. Okay? Okay, 2 minutes are up. Everybody should have had all their answers written in. Now, class monitor, please collect the handouts. Make sure everybody has their name on them. Collect the handouts, leave them on my desk. I will grade them when I come in. Now, let us just do a quick review of what we looked at. We looked at the amplitude modulated wave signal, and we were able to visualize it on our computer screen. and we saw the spectrogram which showed the energy or the power of the wave signal. Now, before COSMOS, we would not be able to show you all of this. So the more power and the more energy the signal has, let's take your cell phone, for example. That's how you hear the signal real clear, or you see the video real clear, because the signal is strong, has a lot of power. And with the colors on the graphs you saw on the COSMOS Toolkit, you can know whether or not your signal is a good, strong, powerful one. So this is very, very, very interesting stuff we're dealing with. Then we looked at the frequency modulated wave signal, and we saw the similar situation. Now, again, if there's any questions you have, if there's anything you're not too clear about, please write them down, email them to me on Google Classroom. I will be sure to respond to you. So until next time, everybody, take care.